Hi, I'm Roger Duncan. I'm an orchard crops farm advisor with the University of California Cooperative Extension in Stanislaus County. Today, we're visiting an almond rootstock field trial near Westlake, California, on the west side of Stanislaus County to discuss many of the rootstock choices growers have when planning for a new almond orchard. Today, you will see that rootstocks can have very significant effects on the performance and profitability of your new orchard. They can affect vigor, anchorage, nutrient uptake, and the date of crop maturity. But more importantly, rootstocks guard against chemical soil challenges like high pH, elevated levels of bicarbonate, or dangerous quantities of sodium, chloride, or boron. They can also help protect against soil-borne pathogens like nematodes, crown gall, Phytophthora, and armylayer root rot. Most of the rootstocks in this trial are available from California nurseries. We won't have a chance to look at all 16 of the rootstocks here, but we will see representatives of rootstocks with similar genetics and similar characteristics and talk about their strengths and their weaknesses. At the end of the video, we will discuss the yield and the differences in gross income among these rootstocks. I hope to convince you that choosing the correct rootstock for your piece of ground and your growing conditions is one of the most impactful decisions that you will make for the success of your orchard. In this replicated field trial, we have documented the performance of 16 different rootstocks over a 12-year period in growing conditions typical to the west side of the San Joaquin Valley. Rootstocks can generally be grouped by genetics or parentage because rootstocks with similar genetics typically behave in a similar way, sometimes with a few differences worth mentioning. The rootstocks in this trial include 5 rootstocks of peach, 7 rootstocks that are crosses of peach and almond, and 2 complex hybrids of multiple species, and rootstocks that are half Mirablan plum hybridized with either peach or almond. The variety in all of these rootstocks in this trial is nonpareil. Trees are planted at a spacing of 16 by 20 for a total of 136 trees per acre. The trial is embedded in a commercial almond orchard south of the town of Westlake and is farmed under typical farming practices by a professional grower who oversees many orchards here on the west side. Soils here on the west side are alluvium from the Pacific Coast ranges and are typically heavier and more alkaline than the east side of the San Joaquin Valley. This area typically gets breezy in the afternoon, which can lead to excessive leaning for trees with poor anchorage. This rootstock trial is planted in a deep Zacharias clay loam soil with a pH ranging from about 7.3 in the top foot to 7.8 or higher in the lower soil profile. The electrical conductivity ranges from about 1.0 to 2.4 decisiemens per meter, which indicates a fairly high level of dissolved salts. Boron levels were moderately high at the time of the planting, but have decreased over time. This orchard is irrigated with a mixture of surface water and groundwater, which has been generally high in bicarbonate and other salts, especially chloride, through the life of this experiment. This is a first-generation orchard following decades of row crops, and there are no significant populations of pathogenic nematodes in this trial. Now, let's go look at some trees. Lovell is a peach rootstock, and it was the early standard out here in the west side of the San Joaquin Valley. The interesting thing is that it turns out that after looking at these 16 rootstocks over 12 years, Lovell has actually turned out to be the worst performing rootstock. Trees on Lovell are the smallest, they have the smallest trunks, they have the smallest canopy, and you can see that the canopy is very see-through because of the weak shoot growth. Leaves on these Lovell trees also tend to be small and very chlorotic, and this is because of the high pH of the soil and the high chloride that we have in the water. Trees on peach rootstocks, such as Lovell, are very salt sensitive, and we were showing it for leaf samples in this orchard last year. We were getting readings of up to 0.95% chloride, which is about 3 times the level that we feel is acceptable. Another characteristic of Lovell is that it has fairly poor anchorage, and the trees in this trial had an average of 12 degrees of leaning, which is really much more than we would like to see, because trees that begin to lean obviously are more prone to blowover, and they are also more prone to shaker injury. Trees on Lovell rootstock also have the lowest yield in this trial, with an average of 2,253 pounds per acre out of in our full production years. Now we'll talk about Nemagard. Nemagard is a peach rootstock, and again was the standard for the San Joaquin Valley for many decades. Nemagard really performs best in well-drained, slightly acidic soil, not necessarily like the soil that we have here, which is a little heavier and a little higher pH. You can see that these trees that are on Nemagard are of really very moderate size. We have some yellow, smallish leaves. and a very sort of see-through canopy here because we don't have a lot of shoot growth. Because Nemangard is a peach rootstock, it is very sensitive to high salt and to high boron. Our July leaf analyses are showing us that these trees on Nemangard are accumulating up to 1% chloride, which is, again, 3 times higher than the level that we would like to see these. And as a result, in many years, we see some leaf burn along the edges, along the tips, reduced shoot growth, and even some shoot death. You also may notice that compared to the peach almond hybrids like Hansen, these trees, the hull split is well advanced. And again, these trees will be ready to shake here within a week or so. The anchorage of Nemangard has been just okay. The average lean is about 9.6 degrees off from center, and yields here are the 3rd lowest in the trial, averaging 2,640 pounds per acre. So here we are standing in front of trees on Empyrean 1 rootstock. Empyrean 1 is also known as Barrier 1, and it comes from a breeding program in Italy. So Empyrean 1 is a peach rootstock, but it is a hybrid of Prunus davidiana, and that davidiana imparts some really important characteristics into this rootstock. So you can see these trees are very large, very green, very lush, very much like a tree that's on a peach almond hybrid. Empyrean 1 is also highly tolerant of sodium, chloride, and boron, almost to the level of a peach almond hybrid rootstock. And the average yield for our nonpareil out here on Empyrean 1 rootstock has been 3,279 pounds per acre. Now, Empyrean 1 is immune to root knot, much like Nemangard, but it seems to have some moderate ring nematode tolerance, but this needs further testing. The main problem that we have identified with Empyrean 1 rootstock is that it has a tendency to lean, and 40% of the trees in this orchard, in this trial, are leaning greater than 15 degrees, which is really not very acceptable. The problem with a tree that leans is obviously this tree is more prone to falling over. The canopy will get in the way of the tractor driver, and a tree that leans this extensively is more prone to shaker injury, which can then lead to fungal canker diseases and premature death. Let's talk about peach almond hybrids. I'm standing here in front of a tree on Hansen, which is a peach almond hybrid that was developed out of UC Davis and was released in 1984. You can see this tree is very large, a lot of very nice, vigorous shoot growth, green, large leaves. This has one of the largest trunks and one of the largest canopies out of all of the rootstocks that are in this trial. The canopies on average of these Hansen rootstocks are capturing about 82% of the sunshine that's falling in its allotted space, which is just about perfect. That allows us to have a maximum yield potential of just over 4,000 pounds per acre, while at the same time leaving a little bit of sun on the ground so that when we harvest these nuts, they will dry faster and we don't have to worry so much about foodborne illnesses. Now, one of the interesting things that happens when you have a tree that is really vigorous, hull split is really delayed. So you've seen the trees on Nemangard, and we've seen how those trees are nearing harvest soon. In contrast, these nuts are just barely splitting, and we're at really just a few percent hull split at this time. And this has major implications for navel orangeworm management, for instance. Hansen rootstock also has excellent anchorage, right up there with Viking and Krimsk 86 in this trial. Peach almond hybrid rootstocks like this Hansen are the most tolerant to salt. So these would be the most tolerant rootstocks to sodium, to chloride, to excessive boron, to soil with high pH, kind of alkaline soil conditions. Peach almond hybrids also have the highest yields in this trial, and they also have the largest kernels. The average yield for trees on Hansen in this trial have been 3,576 pounds per acre during the peach production years. Peach almond hybrid rootstocks are now the most widely planted rootstocks in the San Joaquin Valley. Bright's Hybrid 5 was developed by Bright's Nursery in La Grande, California. It is available from the 4 nurseries that comprise the P2G group. Bright's is, as a peach almond hybrid, it has the same excellent salt and alkalinity tolerance that the other peach almond hybrids do. You can notice that it has a lot of very nice green, succulent growth. But the difference with Bright's 5 is that it is a little bit less vigorous than most of the other peach almond hybrids. So even though the canopy is a little smaller, the trunk is a little bit smaller, yields have been very similar. And yield The average yield for Brights 5 during these peak production years has been about 3,570 pounds per acre. So now the very last peach almond hybrid that I'd like to talk about is called FXA. It is a peach almond hybrid. This is a brand new rootstock. It was released by the USDA in 2020, so it is available now from all nurseries. FXA is a large tree. It has the largest trunk and the largest canopy out here in this trial. You can see the massive amount of growth, very thick canopy, large, green, productive leaves. The trees in this trial on FXA are intercepting about 82% of the sunshine falling on its allotted space, which again is just about perfect. It allows for maximum production of over 4,000 pounds while still allowing enough sunlight to come through where we can dry our nuts in the fall. FXA has been very productive in this orchard, averaging about 3,651 pounds during these productive years. FXA, because it's a peach almond hybrid, it is also very tolerant of salt and alkaline soil. It has had very good acreage in this trial. However, we have very limited experience because it's just not yet widely planted, so we don't know a lot yet about this rootstock. So now we'll switch gears a little bit and we'll talk about rootstocks that are half plum. So this is Rootpack R. Rootpack R is also known as replant pack and comes from Spain through Agromiora. Rootpack R is half almond and half Myrobalan plum. It is well adapted to heavy, alkaline, calcareous soil, which is really kind of a unique niche. We don't have many rootstocks that can fill that niche. Rootpack R has had pretty moderate vigor here. It's capturing about 70% of the sunshine that's on its allotted space, which is not bad, not as good as the peach almond hybrids, but better than Nemagard or Lovell. We have seen Rootpack R in sandier soils where it is much, much smaller. Rootpack R is as tolerant to chloride, at least in this trial, as the peach almond hybrid rootstocks. However, it has collected more sodium in its leaf tissue, more than even Krimsk 86 and the peach rootstocks of Lovell and Nemagard in this trial. Rootpack R is highly resistant to root knot nematode, but it is highly susceptible to ring nematode. Therefore, Rootpack R does not belong in sandy soils in a replant location where ring nematode is a danger. Because of its Myrobalan plum background, it has low to moderate susceptibility to Phytophthora. So yield for trees on Rootpack R in this location have been pretty decent, about 2,967 pounds on average during these high production years. Okay, so now let's talk about Krimsk 86 rootstock. Krimsk 86 is a rootstock that has kind of taken the Sacramento Valley by storm for good reason. So Krimsk is half peach and half Myrobalan plum, and it comes from a breeding program in Russia. The size of the trees on Krimsk 86 are pretty much on par with Lovell, so they're intercepting about 63% of the sunshine falling on its allotted space, so not really as much as we would like here. You can see though with these trees, they're a very moderate size. The leaves are a little small and a little yellow, and there's some necrosis here from salt. Now, Krimsk 86 has outstanding acreage, and that's really its claim to fame. It has this very massive, large, fibrous root system. And Krimsk 86 is numerically the rootstock that have the straightest trees in this trial, just slightly edging out Viking and Hansen, but not statistically different. So Krimsk 86 is not salt tolerant. In fact, it has accumulated the most chloride out of any other rootstock in this trial, and we've seen levels as high as 1.2%, which is 4 times what we consider to be the upper level of chloride that we would like to see. Yields of trees on Krimsk 86 are the second lowest in this trial, yielding on average about 2,562 pounds per acre over these higher production years. Krimsk 86 is a rootstock that really performs best in loam or clay loam soils where you do not have excessive chloride or sodium or boron, and there is no root knot nematode or ring nematode or root lesion nematodes present. These trees behind me are on Viking rootstock, which is a complex hybrid of peach, almond, plum, and apricot, and was developed by Floyd Zager of Zager Genetics right here in Stanislaus County near Modesto. Viking has vigor that is somewhat similar to Nemagard in this location. It's capturing about 71% of the sunshine on its allotted space, which is fairly comparable to Nemagard and Rootpack R in this location. However, in a loam or in a sandy loam soil, you would see vigor a little bit more than a Nemegard. So Viking is moderately tolerant of sodium, chloride, and high pH soils. It is much better than peaches like Lovell and Nemegard, but much less than a peach almond hybrid. However, Viking has been shown here and in other trials to resist boron in a pretty similar level to peach almond hybrid rootstocks. Anchorage for Viking is excellent, and it is comparable to Krimsk 86 in this trial. Viking is immune to root knot nematode, but it is tolerant to ring nematode and bacterial canker, which is unusual for most rootstocks. Guardian and Lovell are two other rootstocks that have similar tolerance levels to ring nematode, but Viking is superior to its salt tolerance, its alkalinity tolerance, it has better anchorage, and it has better tolerance to crown gall and wind throw. In this location, yield has been slightly better than Nemegard, just under 3,000 pounds per acre on average. Okay, so now we're standing in front of trees that are on Atlas rootstock. Atlas is also a complex hybrid from Zayer Genetics, and it has very similar genetics to Viking. Half peach, 1/4 almond, and 1/8 each of apricot and plum. Even though it has genetics that are similar to Viking, it acts a little bit differently. It has sort of similar moderate tree size as Nemegard in most cases, but we have seen that Atlas seems to have a little higher yield efficiency, and we're getting a little higher yields on approximately the same tree size. We know that Atlas has a little better tolerance to ring nematode, more tolerance to sodium and chloride, and a little higher pH than Nemegard, but much less than Viking and very much less than peach almond hybrid rootstocks. Anchorage for Atlas is okay, similar to Nemegard, but not nearly as good as Viking. Yields here on Atlas rootstock are very similar to Viking, right about 2,853 pounds per acre. So we've talked a lot about peach almond hybrid rootstocks, and they are definitely performing the best in this location. They are very salt tolerant. The trees have a very nice vigor. They're filling in their space, and they have the top yields. So why wouldn't everybody plant a peach almond hybrid? Well, the problem with peach almond hybrids is that they are very susceptible to saturated soil, so it has to be in a location with good drainage. They are also very susceptible as a group to root and crown diseases. So diseases like Phytophthora, oak root fungus, and crown gall are particularly bad for this rootstock, or for this group of rootstocks. They are also very susceptible to ring nematodes and bacterial canker. Therefore, you would never want to plant a peach almond hybrid in a real sandy location where you've removed an orchard and you want to put in a new one and you have high ring and nematode counts, because then you're very susceptible to bacterial canker. Finally, not all growers want so much vigor. So if this is too much vigor for you, you might want to consider a little less vigorous rootstock, although the vigor can be controlled somewhat with less irrigation and planting your trees more closely down the row. So to summarize, I want to emphasize that it is very important to know the soil, water, pest, and climatic challenges your trees will be facing, so you can choose the best rootstock to best face those challenges. In this trial, all of the top performing rootstocks are peach almond hybrids, which include BB106, FXA, Bright's Hybrid 5, and Hanson 536. There are other commercially available peach almond hybrid rootstocks that were not included in this trial, and I expect that they would perform similarly to these peach almond hybrids with only some subtle differences. If we use a conservative average price of $2 per pound, a peach almond hybrid rootstock would have netted the grower $10,000 to $11,000 more per acre in this orchard compared to Nemegard and Krimsk 86, and $14,000 to $15,000 more than Lovell over just these 6 harvests that we have measured beginning in the 4th leaf. That is without any additional fertilizer, water, or any other inputs. The reason peach almond hybrids have performed so much better here than Lovell, Nemegard, or Krimsk 86 is because of their inherent vigor and their ability to grow well in this moderately alkaline soil irrigated with water that is moderately high in salt. Other rootstocks that performed admirably here include Empyrean 1, although there are concerns about its anchorage in this breezy area. Rootpack R is in the middle of the pack in this trial. This relatively heavy soil, combined with high chloride, is probably the niche where Rootpack R fits best, and might be a better choice than a peach almond hybrid if the soil was poorly drained. Rootpack R may not be the best choice for lighter soils, especially if sodium or ring nematode is a concern. Atlas and Viking have done okay here, better than the standard peach rootstocks, but they generally perform better in lighter soils than this clay loam here. The worst performing rootstocks out of all 16 that we tested here are industry standards Lovell, Krimsk 86, and Nemagard. They have the least growth and the lowest yields and would have cost the grower $10,000 to $15,000 in yield per acre over just these 6 harvests that we've measured so far. They also have the highest accumulation of chloride, which has caused some substantial leaf burn and early defoliation in some years. I hope this information has been helpful. Please contact your local UC Cooperative Extension office if you have specific questions about which rootstocks are most appropriate for your area. For more information on almond rootstocks, please check out our Almond Rootstocks guide, which is available to download at no cost by scanning this QR code on your screen, or contact the Almond Board of California or your local UC Cooperative Extension office for a copy. You can also utilize our University of California online rootstock database at fruitsandnuts.ucdavis.edu.
Rootstocks are the hidden heroes that significantly impact our trees' performance. Thanks to our partnership with UCNR, decades of meticulous evaluation have revealed their strengths and weaknesses. Our growers now have new knowledge and tools for sustained success. And remember, our discoveries are available in a convenient trifold like this one, in an online library at the Fruit and Nut Center from UC Davis, and in our website. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We are here to support you in every way possible.